All right, so we are live. Hello everyone. I'm Sourabhi Dutta Roy, and I'm currently pursuing my master's in English from Loreto College, Kolkata. I would like to welcome you all to the stories of tribal identity and culture that will explore the role of tribal history and tribal representation in history in shaping cultural identity and ideology, curated under TMYS's review Summer 2023 in collaboration with the Center for Asia Pacific Initiatives, University of Victoria. We are also calling for submissions of essays, poems, and short stories related to the project. To know more about our submission guidelines and project architecture, please visit www.tellmeyourstory.biz. The topic for today is Another Paradise on Earth, the socio-economic status of Kashmiri tribal women, under the sub-theme The Ever-Changing Status of Women in Tribal Communities. This evening, I consider myself very privileged to be in the company of our esteemed speaker, Dr. Shahid Iqbal Choudhary, who will shortly share his insights with us. Before we open the discussion, I'd now like to briefly introduce him to the audience. Dr. Shahid Iqbal Choudhary is an IAS officer of 2009 batch, Jammu and Kashmir Cadre. He served as District Magistrate, Srinagar, Bandipur, Rajouri, Udhampur, Kathua, and Rasi. Other assignments held by him include CEO Smart City, Director Information and PR and MD, Jammu and Kashmir Tourism Development Corporation. He is recipient of the Prime Minister's Award for Excellence in Public Administration and 8 other national awards in the fields of public administration, e-governance, education, women empowerment, and electoral management. His international experiences include bilateral cooperation visits to Italy, Albania, Georgia, Singapore, and South Africa. He is credited with first survey of transhuman tribal population in Jammu and Kashmir using technology and convergence of resources, which laid the foundation for inclusive policy for tribal communities, focusing on education, healthcare, forest rights, livelihood, and culture. Currently, he is serving as Secretary to Government of Jammu and Kashmir. We're delighted to have you on board, sir. Thank you for joining this evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
So please don't call me ma'am. It's absolutely fine. Um, Moving on, I would like to request Dr. Chaudhary to share his insights on the topic. Over to you, sir.
Right. Thank you very much, Sourabhi, for that elaborate introduction. Uh, I see the topic very complex because when you talk about socio-economic condition of women, and again in particular parlance of tribes of Jammu and Kashmir, so it's very complex to understand because when we are talking about tribal identity, there are different tribes belonging to different religions, different socio-economic groups, and different regions as well. Just to give you a background of tribal identity in Jammu and Kashmir, the tribal population, and then coming down to the socio-economic condition of tribes, and then focusing on the women. I would say that, like as a policymaker, I see after these detailed surveys and different exercises which we have done over last 2 years, including research, that one solution for welfare or development is not applicable to all the tribes of Jammu and Kashmir, or even to one tribe in the entire state, because the kind of diversity these tribes have, you have to have a very local understanding of their culture, their socio-economic conditions, and other related factors. So, giving a background, the tribes in Jammu and Kashmir include the Gujars and Bakarwals, which constitute around 90% of the tribal population. Then we have Gaddis and Sippis. We have Bot tribe and other tribes in Kishtwar. Then we have Dard and Shina tribe in Gurez. So they come from all religious faiths as well. Like we have the tribes from Hindu community, Muslims, and Buddhist, of course. So a huge proportion of population undertakes a seasonal migration. This is called as transhumance, the migration between summer pastures and winter pastures. So largely their life is mobile. Like in the summer pastures, in highland pastures, they stay for around 5 to 6 months. Then both ways they migrate around for 4 to 6 weeks. Of course, it has been slightly changed over last 2 years when we have started providing some mobility support for the road part of the journey. So the remaining part they are spending in villages. So largely these families are migratory, and that poses a very serious challenge for the policymakers, for the development administrators, as well as these tribes. So again, these are the factors which have to be taken into mind when we discuss socio-economic conditions of tribal women in Jammu and Kashmir. So the migratory tribals again come from four major tribes: the Gujars, the Bakarwals, Gadis, and Sippis. So there are four different types of migration which these tribes undertake. The largest migration is inter-district, like they migrate from their village and to the highland pastures, both of which are located in a same district. Then there are the migratory tribes which undertake inter-district. Like in Kashmir, they move from Kupwara to Parambula. Some move from Badgam to Pulwama. So this is inter-district. And likewise in Jammu also, some of these tribal families migrate from Samba district to Udhampur, highlands of Udhampur, from Jammu to Riyasi as well. So these are inter-district. And the second largest after these two is second largest is inter-province migration, which is from Jammu province to Kashmir province. And lastly, there is interstate and inter-UT. Like these families are going to parts of Ladakh, parts of Himachal Pradesh, and lateral migration to Punjab. So it's absolutely a diverse situation where you see around 6 lakh people migrating every year. Till 2021, we did not have any credible database of the migratory tribal communities. So we undertook this challenge and used technology to identify these tribes, these families, and going up to the level of individuals. Then doing a socio-economic analysis of every individual vis-a-vis their access to education, to healthcare system, basic livelihood support from the government, and most importantly, the coverage under centrally sponsored schemes, state schemes, and to understand whether the constitutional safeguards which have been guaranteed under the Constitution of India or through various schemes as well, have these reached this tribal population or not. So again, a lot of surprises, like they say that there is devil in the details. So a lot of surprises were thrown by this survey. So first and foremost, the most important thing which we learned from the survey is that this transhumance phenomena is observed in around 18 to 19 countries across the world. I mean, to a greater extent, and there are countries which have a very smaller portion of transhumance. So Jammu and Kashmir recorded the world's largest transhuman population as at 612,000 people migrating every year. We believe it's around 6 lakh 20,000 odd people migrating every year, and that puts it at number one in the world vis-a-vis the transhuman population. When after that we geotagged all the families. I mean, geotagged all the locations, the places where they are stationed in their winter pastures, in their summer pastures. Then we did the GIS mapping of all these routes. So after that, we started building some transit accommodations. Till now, we have developed 10 transit accommodations on these routes after doing this GIS mapping. And we did geotagging of 98,000 family locations at highland pastures as well as in their villages. So after that, we understood that there are huge gaps in essential services like in healthcare. Only 7% of families had access to healthcare facilities. So after that, we moved to Government of India. Just to cite an example, how we are doing sectoral, we're doing this work in a particular sector. When we reached through National Health Mission, we reached to Government of India. They sanctioned us 865 posts of tribal ashas. Uh, Girls educated 8 standard and above to be recruited from these migratory families. So that is just an idea to provide them a basic healthcare support system. Then we introduced mobile medical units, ambulances, healthcare facilities like helplines and other things. Even in areas where telemedicine was feasible, and sending our teams to the highland pastures. And last year and the previous one also, we ensured 100% vaccination to be done in these areas. So you can just understand that the enormity of challenge. When you talk about socio-economic condition of women, it's well understood. I'm not going to data that if we are not empowering women in a family, so this entire family is impacted, family is affected. If we are empowering women, if we are providing them a choice of decision making, we are providing them financial independence, we are providing them access to healthcare, education, other services. We're not empowering a woman, but empowering a family, empowering a community. So our experience have been, I mean, very challenging, and in a very short time, we ensured that education reaches to this migratory community, these tribal villages. Healthcare services are provided. Over last 2 years, we have invested more than 50 crores in livelihood alone, just to establish those small sheep farms, dairy farms, then providing basic support for education system and basic support for healthcare system. What I feel is that the socio-economic condition of tribal women in Jammu and Kashmir is extremely challenging for policymakers and development administrators, as I said earlier. So I think understanding Jammu and Kashmir tribal women just from one lens will not suffice. And as we go into the details of this discussion, more things will emerge, and I'll be sharing my experiences further.
Right. So I have prepared some questions for you. So then I'll be moving on to the questions. So Kashmir is often labeled as paradise on earth due to its scenic beauty, and of course, its cultural heritage is also matchless. But when it comes to the women, would you say the place is still a paradise to them?
But again, paradise is a very romanticized idea. What is paradise? That I think where you have a good quality of life, a comfort of life, a freedom of making choice. You are at the decision making, maybe at individual, at family, at community level, where you have freedom of choice, freedom of expression. So these all, apart from the scenic beauty, apart from the natural beauty, apart from these things, I think these are very important. That when you feel a peace of mind, when your quality of life is ensured. So I will discuss in two, three important parameters. Firstly, that recent changes. I mean, I discussed the challenges, the kind of challenges we have about tribal migration. Like more than 33% of population is migratory. So you have huge challenges there. So I'll just try to elaborate how things are moving over past few years or many years to say in few fields. First of all, decision making, maybe at individual level and at institutional level. Talking about institutional level, uh, for last 3 to 4 years, we have been moving to strengthen the local Panchayati Raj institutions, the local institutions of self-governance. So if we understand the Panchayati Raj Act, it says that 33% seats are reserved for women. When you think about tribal women, let's see some statistics. Like out of 4,200 odd panchayats, there are close to 600, precisely 565 tribal members elected to panchayats. Those who are sarpanches and panches, out of which 41% are women. So the constitution or the act mandates that 33% should be women, but in J&K we have more than 40%. You would have observed in many states that where the women are represented, wherever there is a reservation, in many cases women are represented there by the male member of their family, husband, son, or so on. But in J&K, what I have seen is that apart from these statistics that we are beyond 33% at 40% or above, the women are very active in the tribal women are very active in these panchayats, the sarpanch and panch. They are very active in policy making, planning, and other things at ground level. There has been a huge change in that. So before going into the socio-cultural aspect of that, let's discuss at district level also. Again, 99 seats are reserved for district development councillors and block development council chairpersons, all of whom are member of the district level panchayat body. So again, 42% of these members are women from tribal community. So that's very encouraging sign that women in tribal areas have gone beyond the representation reservation given under this. So when you discuss about decision making at individual family level, you will find that even in these migratory families, women have equal say as compared to their male counterparts, and mostly these families have larger dependence on women on their decision making, be it household or other things. I'll just cite an example of Gurez area where we have Dardshin tribal communities. So when you go there and talk to women, they are so open in discussing their socio-cultural aspects of life, other things, and their contribution to local household economy is immense. Like you will find the men running shops, business, and other kind of things equally with their women partners. So this is one example of society where the tribal men and women feel equal in their social and moral values. Then about expenditure decision, we conducted a study that nearly 40% of women have absolute or some larger say in expenditure decision making at their family level. Then again, as I said, paradise is something when you have good health, access to education, decision making, and equal opportunities. So I think we have again some shortfalls, some gaps in healthcare outreach and healthcare facilities in particular tribal areas, like I cited earlier. Also, I think that's one area where we have to focus. But again, we have very encouraging gender ratio of 950 women per thousand men, which is very high in many other areas. Even I mean, more than 970, 980 in few areas as well. And access to education is again our concern. So health and education are two serious areas of concern. If talking about literacy rate, it's again very low in tribal women. Like if we discuss only the migratory population, which has an overall 16% literacy rate, women there stand at around 14%. So this is a segment of tribal community where we need to focus. So I think to realize the dream of paradise, there are some steps, there are some positive points. Like I said, empowerment at elected representative level, in reaching out vis-a-vis various schemes. But again, healthcare and education are two important sectors for tribal women. Until and unless we achieve 100% outreach, 100% access in these sectors, we will not be able to call it paradise. So that's my personal understanding, both as a citizen and as well as a policymaker dealing with the subject.
Right, sir. It's still nice that even if it's not a complete paradise, we are still working towards it, and hopefully one day it will be the romanticized idea of paradise. Today is the day in the age of rapid urbanization, and that vibrant pastoral lifestyle of Kashmir or any other place close to nature, for that matter, seems fading. So, how has urbanization affected or is still affecting the tribal women of Kashmir, either in positive or negative light?
Right. Again, it's a very complex question. Urbanization has both positive and negative or not so positive impacts. There have been some improvements also. Uh, when we discuss about this migratory nature of tribal population in Kashmir, a very large population migrating every year, every season, I mean, twice a year. So there has been a transformation in last 2 3 decades. What kind of transformation is this? When we talk about this transhumans, the seasonal migration, whether this is scientifically sustainable or not. So I find, as a person coming from a tribe, as well as having studied the sector and now contributing at policy level, I think this is a scientifically sustainable model where you are migrating with your livestock and allowing regeneration at other place for a particular time, and those transits through highland pastures. So this is very important for local ecology as well, but it comes with lot of cost. It has become a cultural practice, also socio-cultural practice, but the costs are enormous. I mean, the man days lost in movement along with livestock, ranging from 4 to 6 weeks one way, and similar time on return also. So there are a lot of economic losses as well in as well as coming into this process. So when we talk about urbanization, so what has been changing over the years is a when you talk about education, like we have around 1,200 seasonal centers, then huge number of schools in tribal areas as well. So the kind of education which has been the kind of investment which has been made into education sector by the government of Jammu and Kashmir, by the union government, that has been enormous, which is reflected in the increase in number of increase in the enrollment at school and college level, increase in the graduates coming from tribal communities, and the people joining employment business opportunities. So there has been tremendous improvement in educational standards, in employment base. I mean, if you see the only the selections in service selection board or public service commission at central or state level, you will find huge number of youth coming from tribal communities. Then employment opportunities in private sector at local, at national level, business opportunities. So all these changes have impacted this tribal migration or tribal culture in villages to a great extent. But I find in a positive way that the people are connected to their roots. The migration has not gone down. Like in 2021 survey, we found that nearly one third of the population migrates. So it has been roughly 35 to 40% all these years. So I think it has stagnated rather than coming down. So economics of migration is again a concern. People are connected to their roots, and when you talk specifically about urbanization, so there are few things I will just want to highlight, that urbanization or introduction of technology or advancement in availability of services has eased their life as well. On one aspect, like the migration on road part of the route is taken care of by taking hiring vehicles are being right now being provided by the government as well. Second is that the use of machines for plowing and other things, even milking, milk storage, wool shearing, other things. And the negatives, I would say, is that when you have machine products flooding your markets, the value for tribal products has gone down. When we talk about the milk and milk products coming from these highland pastures, or wool and wool products coming from these areas, and particularly the handlooms and handicraft products, which have suffered immensely in last many years, which have, because these are not cost effective when you talk about such products coming from machine made brands. So that is a concern, that they are reinventing their livelihood. So I think there is still a fine balance, but these concerns are far outweighing the benefits which we have received from urbanization.
Right, sir. So I was mentioning the cultural heritage of Kashmir, and that brings me to my next point of folklores, because folklores play a vital role in the study and understanding of any culture. So, could you share with us some of the ancient myths or folk tales or legends of the days bygone that shaped Kashmir's tradition, heritage, and culture? And how can this rich oral tradition of Kashmiri folklore, also known as Kashur Lukadab, be preserved for the long run?
Like I said, there is a diversity of tribal communities in Jammu and Kashmir. The geographical spread across the 20 districts, religious identities covering people coming from all religions, different cultures. So, what I feel is that the folklore is reflected both in their daily lifestyles and socio-economic relations as well. The daily lifestyle is reflective of the kind of traditions, the kind of values they have been carrying through intergenerational communication. And one important example I will cite is traditional jurisprudence. Even today, you will find that the cases related to marital disputes, land disputes, and other cases, uh, which normally go to court in every village, or are settled by tribal or family elders within the village. So the traditional jurisprudence has been a very rich example, particularly from these tribal areas where we have observed. And uh, we started an exercise where WWF has playing a major role, that organizing this workshops, capacity building, and just trying to reduce these things to writing, documentation of traditional jurisprudence. And second is about traditional medicine. Even today, you will find in villages, in highland pastures, they have antidotes for all kind of issues, and they are using the traditional medicine also. And there have been some initiatives by forest department to document this traditional knowledge of medicine among these tribal communities. So these are two important things which have a scientific correlation, and I think where we find a lot of strength coming from sustainability point of view, sustainable support to the community as well. Then, broadly talking, there are stories, there are myths associated with every single thing in their lifestyle. Like when we talk about the areas they inhabit, the rivers which they use, the birds, mountains, sources of water. So there is a story, there is a myth related to everything. Like I said in the opening remarks of this question, that this is reflected in their daily life as well as their social values. So there is a place called Bungus Valley in Kupwara where we visited last summer. So there are few mounds in the on at the end of this meadow, and where the people say that there was a dispute between share given to the sisters. So the brothers did not give share of paddy crop to the sister. So there was some wrath or some incident. So it was abandoned here, and still the rats are seen moving inside this. So I mean, they just discussed that about the rights to be given between the family members, the rights to do so. These are the parlance, these are the ideas which are prevailing in our rural economy, in our tribal areas. And even today, you will find that tribal villages have a very self-sufficient, a very, I will not say closed, but a self-sufficient economic model, where still we find the barter system. If I'm cultivating rice and you are cultivating vegetables, so we'll just exchange, and there is still a value, there is a norm that how are these things exchanged. So if you are going to a traditional water mill for grinding of your crop produce, so you'll give a part of it to the person who owns that mill. So these are the things which have been prevailing, or uh, still present in this tribal culture. And most importantly, we were discussing, like for last few days, we have been discussing about this earthquake in Syria and Turkey. So the kind of architecture which we see in tribal areas, I think this is among the most resilient and most, I mean, scientifically decided kind of architecture in these areas. Those houses made of stone, mud, and those wooden logs. So I think these things have come through their experience, through their traditional knowledge, through their folklores, and lastly, I would say the tribal music and the artistic richness of Jammu and Kashmir is again very unique.
Right, sir. So, a place like Kashmir, which upholds the natural beauty of the earth and the country it is part of, is also frequently in the news for all the wrong reasons. So, how do the tribals, the minority class, especially the women of the community, navigate their identities in such a situation? And how does a child born into these Kashmiri tribes grow up understanding the concept of identity?
Yeah. I'll just try to be politically correct in this question. I mean, whatever has happened in Jammu and Kashmir, we all have been equal stakeholders of that. But wherever you see the tribal concentration, the people have contributed for nation building enormously uh, towards the society and the local economy as well. The tribal population is around 2 million right now, and the tribal population has been playing a larger role in the local economy, both by contributing the raw material and acting as a market as well. So, identity, the collective identity, rather, I would say, collective identity is the basic concept in tribal culture. In the tribes, there are clans, different clans, like in even Gujar Bakarwals, you will find around 90-95 different clans. So there are local identities within tribes. In Gaddis and Sipis, in Dadchin, again, you will find the sub clans, the different identities. I mean, linked to the places they come from, the kind of socio-economic practices prevalent in the tribe. So identity is the very basic concept in any tribe, be it in Jammu and Kashmir, like elsewhere as well. So there are two factors which are very important here to understand. One is the inherent uniqueness. I mean, the tribe which you come from, the clan you come from. So this is very important that this is inherent in that tribe because these tribes stay together in villages, then they migrate to highland pastures together, and there they have different zones of stay called as dhokes. I mean, 10 to 15 families staying at one place, then the areas are divided and decided between them. Secondly, there is a collective consciousness, like the constitution provides a lot of provisions for tribal welfare. We have a lot of schemes, we have a lot of protective measures for them. So there is a collective consciousness of identity which brings these tribes together. So these are two important factors. And lastly, I would say the economic, the legal, educational, and cultural aspects of the tribal welfare. Again, they are creating a lot of difference in maintaining the tribal identity and preserving their culture.
All right, sir. So, how has your personal experience been as the first Gurjar from Jammu and Kashmir to be appointed as an IAS officer? And would you say that India as a country is becoming more inclusive or exclusive with time?
Right. Uh, I think things have changed. The times have changed. In my case, it was more of hit and trial. I studied in a village where we had a government school, and which was the only education institutions. And fortunately, we had very good quality teaching as well, with the support from family and friends. As we went up the ladder of education, so I moved to a town and to the cities, and again landing up in capital city. After doing my graduation, I mean, I started preparing for civil services when I was in third year of my 5-year degree course in veterinary science and animal husbandry. So I clicked for this Indian Forest Service examination in 2005, right after my college. I wrote this examination in the final year of my college, and after that, I just tried civil services. So right now, the students do not come by this hit and trial method. They start very early. I mean, after class 10, 11, because the technology which is available, the medium of communication which are available with us. So I think these have changed the things. So certainly coming from a tribal community and being the first from the tribe and from the community to be into IES was again a great moment of pride for me and the people as well. But it comes again with a lot of challenges. Right now, I mean, when I look back in last 14 years, so we have dozens of IAS and IPS officers from the tribal community in Jammu and Kashmir who are serving elsewhere also. We have people in large numbers in state civil services, doctors, engineers. So each one of them has contributed immensely towards this possibility of coming and contributing at regional and national level. So talking about inclusiveness, I think in at any level in India, be it at regional level, at central level, the kind of opportunities you receive, I think for tribals there is a positive discrimination at every level, be it UPSC or wherever you go. I think if you have that basic zeal, if that basic commitment towards your goals, I think you will never find a problem or any kind of discrimination at any level in achieving your goal. And particularly if you are talking about women, what I have seen, those of our colleagues coming into services, civil services, going into other career opportunities, I think system has been more than welcoming for them as well.
Right, right. So, lastly, what hope do you see for the Kashmiri tribals, especially their women in India, in the future?
Uh, uh, like I said in the beginning, that we have moved in a very positive and right direction when we talk about their inclusion in decision making in the local self government, in the panchayati raj institutions, their inclusion in various village level committees which decide about healthcare, sanitation, I mean environment and forest and so many other things. So when we have started with implementation of Forest Right Act in Jammu and Kashmir, when we have offered the people, we have confirmed their rights, when we have upheld their rights, and also given them rights over the minerals, forest produce, and other things. So I think in that backdrop, in that context, we also need to think that are we working on education and healthcare? Yes, there have been a lot of initiatives, but most importantly, and the positive of this entire story, what I see is that a very positive response from tribal women. I mean, they are more than enthusiastic when you go to a village, you go to area for conducting a program, for an interaction or anything. So you will not find any shyness. I think we have been lagging for so many years in reaching out to them. Once we have reached out to them in last 2 3 years through various initiatives led by the central and the UT government, I mean, the kind of response is again enormous, and I see not only a ray of hope, but with a great confidence that their contribution in the years to come, both at regional and national level, will be immense.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. This brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you once again, sir, for joining us and for sharing your invaluable perspectives on the topic with us. I'm sure the audience who watched the live and who will be watching the live in the future would be equally enriched. Once again, to those watching, this is to remind all that we are calling for submissions of essays, short stories, and poems related to the project. To know more, please visit www.tellmeyourstory.biz. We will come back to you with yet another panel discussion. Until then, good night.